Why is that tomato beside your straw mulch still wilting and curling in August while the rest of the plant looks green? You start blaming the heat, then the watering, maybe disease. I did the same thing, because once mulch is down, most of us stop treating it like something that can change. That is the trap. Mulch can create 6 different problems by late summer, even when you spread it with every good intention back in spring. Some are sitting right at the stem, some are hiding under the surface, and one of them has nothing to do with how carefully you mulched it all. It starts before that bale ever reaches your yard. The one I check hardest now starts with a simple question about where the straw came from. Number 1, the mulch volcano, the pile that's quietly rotting your stem. You knelt down back in May and mounded that mulch right up against the stem, like frosting a cupcake. It looked finished. It looked like you had done the job right. You stepped back, wiped your hands on your pants, felt good about it. 2 months later, you're staring at yellow leaves and a suspicious softness at the base of the plant you never saw coming. I used to think the tighter the mulch hugged the stem, the better protected the plant was. I quit doing that once I saw what stayed wet underneath. Here's the part that never makes it onto the mulch bag. Mulch piled against the stem is actually the worst place for it to be. You think you're protecting the plant better by piling it higher and thicker. You're doing the opposite. You're trapping moisture right at the point where the plant is softest and most vulnerable. August is when the damage shows up loud and clear, not because of heat or drought, but because of what's happening underneath that pile where no air can reach. Picture what's happening under that mulch right now if it's touching the stem. A tomato or pepper stem was never designed to sit wet and waterlogged 24 hours a day through the heat. When you mound mulch up against the stem, you're keeping that bark damp and clammy every single day while temperatures climb and humidity stays high. Fungi and bacteria do not wait for rain to get in the door. They walk straight through soft, wet bark like it is open. That is where the rot starts. Roots start forming in the wrong places. They grow upward toward air instead of down into the soil where they belong. The plant weakens from the inside out. What that means for your garden right now is simple. Walk out to your tomato or pepper plant tonight or tomorrow morning. Pull the mulch back about 3 inches from the stem with your hand. You want to expose the flare, that spot where the stem spreads into roots beneath the soil line. That flare needs air and light, not mulch smothering it. Keep a few inches of bare space around a tomato or pepper stem so the crown can dry between waterings. If you are mulching a tree or shrub, use the same principle, but keep the root flare exposed. Same mistake, different anatomy. Mulch should look like a donut, not a volcano. 2 to 4 inches deep, absolutely, but 3 inches of clear space between the mulch and the stem all the way around. If your mulch is deeper than 4 inches right now, pull it back. You do not have to throw the mulch away. Rake what you pulled back out to the outer edge of the bed, where it can actually do its job. Old-school gardeners leave breathing room around a stem for a reason. Your tomato stem is not a candle. Stop dressing it like one. Number 2, sour mulch, the fresh bag that's already turned toxic. You bought a fresh bag of mulch, cracked it open, and the smell hit you before the bag was even halfway open. It was strong, kind of vinegar-like, kind of off in a way you could not quite place. Something about it did not smell right. You told yourself it was just mulch smell, that maybe it was old or hot in the warehouse. It is not. You were sensing something real. I learned about this when I read a University of Missouri extension piece on summer mulch one evening. One line stopped me cold. Mulch can actually go sour. Inside a sealed pile during hot weather, the mulch ferments. Inside that sealed pile, fermentation creates compounds, methanol, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, that are actually toxic to plants. These herbicides can create a completely different environment inside those big piles, at the supplier, or in your garage. When mulch is sealed up like that for weeks in hot weather, it starts to ferment. The compounds it produces will scorch a leaf in a matter of hours if you spread it around sensitive plants. What that means for your plants right now is simple. Before you spread that bag of mulch you have sitting in the garage or the driveway, do a 2-second test. Dig your hand into it. If it feels unusually hot, warmer than room temperature by a lot, that is a sign something fermented inside. Take a sniff. Good mulch smells like a forest floor, like earth and wood. Sour mulch smells like a science experiment gone wrong. Vinegar, ammonia, something sharp and wrong that you will recognize the second you smell it. If you get that smell, do not spread it around your plants yet. Spread it out thin in full sun for a week to let it off-gas. If you already spread sour mulch and you see sudden yellowing or burning on the leaves within 24 hours, pull it back immediately. Water the plants well to rinse any residue. Some plants recover after the bad mulch is removed and the area is watered, but tender plants can be hit hard. The sooner you catch it, the better. Good mulch smells like a forest floor. Sour mulch smells like a mistake. Number 3. The pillbug bloom. What dozens of roly-polies are really warning you about. After that August rain, you walked out to check your raised bed and lifted back the mulch, and about 40 little gray armored bugs scattered in every direction. I do not reach for a bug killer when I see this. I reach for the rake. Pillbugs themselves are not your enemy. They are decomposers. When you see them in that kind of number, clustered thick under the mulch, what you are really seeing is a signal. That signal is almost always mulch that is too deep or has been sitting undisturbed too long. Pillbugs and sowbugs breathe through gills, which means they need moisture to survive. When you provide them a mulch pile that stays damp day after day, especially after a heavy rain, you have created a resort for them. When mulch sits more than 4 inches deep, you trap moisture right at the surface level. That moisture does not evaporate because the mulch blocks air. Pillbugs move in by the hundreds because they depend on finding exactly this: damp, sheltered, dark, and undisturbed. What that means for your garden right now is simple. If you see this bloom of roly-polies, you do not need to kill them. You need to break the wet. Rake the surface open enough to let air in, then let the damp mulch dry before you settle it back. If your mulch is deeper than 4 inches, pull some back to the outer edge of the bed. Anyone who has lifted mulch after a wet August knows what that damp pocket looks like. 2 to 4 inches is the right depth. Mulch thicker than that stops being a protector and starts being a wet blanket. A few roly-polies are workers. A few dozen are a warning. Number 4. Rock mulch, the border that's baking your roots alive. You wanted something that would never need replacing, so you went with the rock border and the rubber mulch. By July, that bed was the hottest spot in your whole yard. I would keep stone on a path before I put it against a young tomato in full August sun. Rock, gravel, and dark rubber mulch can hold a lot of heat in full sun. Think about standing in a parking lot in August versus standing in a shaded garden with wood mulch under your feet. The difference is not just in the air temperature, it is in what is actually happening at the ground level. Rock and dark rubber sit in the sun and absorb that heat all day long. Then they radiate that heat back down into the soil underneath. Picture what that means for a tomato plant or pepper sitting next to rock mulch in a full sunbed right now. The roots were never designed to handle soil that hot. Mulch is supposed to insulate the soil, to keep it cooler in summer. Rock does the opposite. It turns your root zone into a Dutch oven. More water does not fix heat. Your plant respires faster trying to cool itself. The leaves start to show stress, curling, wilting, sometimes browning at the edges even when you are watering. And you water more, thinking the plant is thirsty, when the real problem is that the rock has turned the ground into an oven. What that means for your garden right now is straightforward. If you already have rock or rubber mulch around young plants or shallow-rooted vegetables, pull stone or rubber back from the active root zone and use organic mulch around the plants instead. Keep the permanent material for paths and decorative edges. For new beds, skip rock and rubber around anything you want to grow food. Stone is fine on a path. The problem is putting a heat-holding surface inside the active root zone of a plant you are trying to keep cool. Old-timers saved stone for paths and kept organic mulch around the plants they wanted cooler. Rock does not cool anything, it just waits for the sun, then hands the heat straight to your roots. But the next mistake on this list has nothing to do with how you mulched. It's about what might already be sitting inside the bag, or the bale, you brought home. Number 5. The straw bale nobody questioned. The poison hiding in natural mulch. You thought straw was the safe choice. Natural, cheap, no dye, no plastic. That is exactly why nobody thinks to ask what was sprayed on the field it came from. Straw and hay can carry residue you cannot see or smell before it reaches the bed. If that field was treated with a specific group of herbicides, aminopyrrolid, clopyrrolid, or picloram, sold under brand names like Grazon, Milestone, Tordon, and Curtail, you have brought a poison into your garden without knowing it. I learned this the hard way when I used a cheap bale of straw from roadside. I spread it around my tomatoes in June. By July, every leaf on that row was curling inward like a fist. 2 weeks chasing the wrong diagnosis, bugs, blight, my watering, before I found the problem was sitting exactly where I had spread it. But Virginia Tech Extension flags exactly why this happens. These herbicides can stay active after composting. They can also pass through livestock and remain active in the manure, which is why the residue can travel from a treated field into a vegetable bed. What happens is this. Those herbicides trigger an abnormal growth response in the plant the same way they kill dandelions in that field. Leaves twist, stems distort. In extreme cases, the plant cannot allocate energy to fruit, and it dies. If you have been buying hay or straw from the same place all year, ask the farmer directly. What herbicides have you sprayed on your fields in the last 2 seasons? If the answer includes Grazon, Milestone, Tordon, or any of those names, do not buy from that source. If you bought some already and you are not sure, here is a test that costs nothing. Set up a straw pot and a clean control pot. Plant several bean or pea seeds in both and compare them for 2 to 3 weeks. If the straw pot twists while the control stays normal, do not use that bale. A normal result lowers the concern, but it does not tell you the field history. Ask the supplier anyway. Most straw is not automatically contaminated. The risk is the bale with a field history you cannot verify. That straw looked the most natural thing in your whole garden. That is exactly why nobody checked it first. Number 6. The mulch that already gave up. Failing silently while still sitting there. The mulch is still there, you can see it, brown and flat against the soil. What you cannot see is that it stopped doing its job weeks ago. Organic mulch does not stay the same thickness all summer. The mulch you spread back in May was alive with biology, fungi breaking down the wood fibers, bacteria working through the layers. While mulch is breaking down and becoming dirt, it is also getting thinner. Pull back your mulch in mid-August and you are looking at maybe half of what you started with, maybe less. Sometimes it is just a thin crust, packed down hard from rain and heat and foot traffic. At that thickness, mulch cannot insulate the soil against August heat. It cannot hold moisture the way it did in June. Once you see that, the rest makes sense. A woman wrote to me, retired school teacher out in Georgia. She mulched her raised beds back in April and figured that was that for the season. By early August, she pulled back her April mulch and found only a thin, packed crust. She could still see mulch from above, but once she checked it by hand, there was almost no working depth left. She pulled back what was left and found almost nothing. Once she saw it, the fix took 10 minutes. She added a new mulch cover, about 2 inches thick, right over what was left. The plants stopped looking so stressed once the soil had some protection again. Here is the 2-minute check you need to do right now. Walk out to 2 or 3 different spots in your beds. Push your hand down into the mulch. If it feels hard, if it feels like you are pressing into concrete instead of sponge, that is your signal. If water you pour on top just beads up and runs off instead of soaking in, that is the other signal. The mulch has failed. Not because you did anything wrong, just because time happens. Mulch does not fail loudly. It just quietly stops working while you are still looking right at it. If that straw check just saved one of your tomato plants from a summer of curled leaves, subscribe and turn on the bell. I post another practical garden check like this every week. 6 mistakes, and every single one of them happens after you already did the hard part. You mulched. You showed up. The problem is never that you did not try. It is that mulch keeps changing on you all summer long, and nobody tells you to go back and check it. One more thing before you head out there. If you pull back mulch tonight and it smells like vinegar or ammonia, do not just toss it in a pile by the fence to reuse later. Spread it out thin in full sun for about a week to let it off-gas, or bag it for the trash. Do not add it straight to your regular compost pile. You will just be moving the same problem to a different part of your yard. Tonight, before it gets dark, walk out to 1 tomato or pepper plant. Pull the mulch back with your hand. Check 3 things. Is it touching the stem? Is it deeper than 4 inches, and if it is straw you bought, do you actually know what was sprayed on that field? 3 checks, 1 plant, 5 minutes. The garden center sells you the mulch. Nobody sells you the 5 minutes it takes to check it. That part's still free.